It was a glittering evening in New York City, the kind of evening where skyscraper windows caught the dying golden rays of the sun and reflected them back like flames dancing across the skyline, and at the very heart of this glitter lay the colossal tower of Blackwell Enterprises, a billion-dollar empire built on the vision, ruthlessness, and ambition of its CEO, Victor Blackwell, a man whose name struck both fear and admiration into the hearts of those who dared to cross his path. Victor was the kind of billionaire who believed money could buy everything: loyalty, love, power, and even respect. But what he failed to realize was that there were things beyond the reach of his immense fortune, and fate had prepared a brutal lesson for him, wrapped in the most unexpected form of a waitress's daughter. That night, Victor was hosting a lavish gala in the ballroom of the Blackwell Tower, a spectacle designed to impress potential investors, dazzle international press, and remind everyone that he was untouchable, with champagne flowing like rivers, crystal chandeliers dripping from the ceiling, and every guest dressed in gowns and tuxedos worth small fortunes. Yet amidst the glamour, there was a quiet corner of the hall where a young waitress named Elena moved swiftly, balancing trays of glasses, with a practiced hand and a humble smile that masked her exhaustion. Elena had worked at the Blackwell Tower's in-house catering service for months, saving every penny to support her teenage daughter, Sophia, a girl with sharp intelligence, fierce determination, and dreams that soared far above their modest life. Sophia often came by after school to help her mother, wiping tables, organizing dishes, and doing homework in the staff lounge. And though Elena hated to see her daughter sacrifice her teenage years to such hardship, she always told Sophia that no struggle is wasted if it builds strength, and that strength, someday, would take her farther than money ever could. Fate, however, has its peculiar ways of weaving lives together, and on that gala night, Sophia, dressed simply in her school uniform with a notebook clutched under her arm, walked into the staff section to wait for her mother, not realizing she was about to step into the most pivotal moment of her life, because Victor Blackwell, the billionaire himself, would notice her, not with kindness or her confidence filled the room. She had learned chess from old books in the public library, practicing late into nights when her mother came home too tired to talk, and she wasn't just good, she was brilliant, a prodigy hidden in plain sight. The game began, the billionaire's hands moving pieces with calculated pride, but Sophia's mind worked like lightning, anticipating, countering, trapping, her every move infused with clarity, while Victor's ego blinded him to the fact that he was being cornered, and slowly but surely, his empire of pawns, knights, and rooks crumbled against the unyielding will of a girl who had nothing but raw intellect and determination. Sweat began to bead on his forehead as the crowd leaned closer, their loyalties shifting, whispers growing into gasps, and finally, after a tense 40 minutes, Sophia moved her queen decisively, her voice calm yet resounding: "Checkmate." Silence fell, followed by an eruption of applause and disbelief. Victor's face drained of color as he stared at the board, unable to comprehend how he had lost, not to a rival CEO, not to a master player, but to the daughter of a waitress, and for the first time in years, he felt powerless, stripped of his pride, mocked by fate itself. But Sophia didn't smile, she didn't celebrate, she simply stood up, looking him in the eye with quiet strength. "Keep your money," she said, "we don't need your 100 million, because dignity is worth more than wealth, and I'd rather my mother see me win with integrity than sell my soul for your fortune." Her words thundered louder than applause, echoing across the ballroom, leaving the billionaire humiliated in front of his peers. Elena rushed forward, tears streaming down her face, hugging her daughter tightly, and the crowd, touched and shaken, began clapping again, this time not for the spectacle, but for the girl who had reminded them all that true worth comes from within. Victor sat frozen, laughter gone, arrogance shattered, and though he would never admit it, a seed of respect, or perhaps fear, took root in his heart, for he realized he had just underestimated someone who might one day change the world, and that was a mistake no billionaire could afford. But for Sophia and Elena, that night was not about victory or defeat, it was about proving that courage, dignity, and unshakable belief could outshine even the brightest chandeliers of the wealthiest towers. Compassion, but with the arrogance of a man who thought the world was his stage and every person his pawn, Victor was engaged in a heated conversation with other CEOs, bragging about how nobody in the city could outsmart him in business, in strategy, or in life, when suddenly his cold eyes landed on Sophia, who had been standing quietly, observing the room, her gaze steady, intelligent, and fearless, and for a brief second, Victor felt unsettled, though he quickly masked it with a laugh, calling out loudly enough for everyone around to hear, "Hey, little girl, what are you doing here? This is no place for school children, unless you're here to collect leftover bread." And his friends laughed cruelly, but instead of shrinking back, Sophia stepped forward, her voice calm yet commanding, saying, "I'm here for my mother. She works harder than anyone in this room, including you." Her words slicing through the laughter like a blade, silencing the crowd for a heartbeat before Victor smirked, amused by her audacity, and declared, "Interesting, the waitress's daughter has a tongue of steel, but tell me, do you really think you're smarter than me? I've built empires, I've crushed rivals, I've outplayed kings of finance, so what can you do, child?" Sophia didn't blink, her voice steady as she replied, "Brains win over money, and heart wins over arrogance. If you think you're unbeatable, then challenge me, and I'll show you." The room erupted in whispers, shocked that a teenager dared to speak this way to a billionaire, but Victor, always eager for spectacle, leaned back and laughed. "All right then, here's a deal, win this challenge, and I'll give you $100 million, enough to buy yourself all the dreams you can think of, but if you lose, you and your mother will both never set foot in this tower again." Elena, who had just returned with an empty tray, froze in horror, whispering, "Sophia, don't, please," but her daughter's eyes were ablaze with conviction, and she nodded firmly, "I accept." Now the entire ballroom was electrified with curiosity, phones discreetly lifted to record what was unfolding, journalists scribbling in excitement, because they knew this could be the story of the decade. A billionaire versus a waitress's daughter, courage versus power, a gamble of a lifetime. Victor, with a wicked grin, snapped his fingers, and his assistant wheeled out a chessboard, gleaming ivory and ebony pieces ready for war. "We'll play chess," he declared, "the game of kings, strategy, patience, vision. Do you even know how to play, little girl?" Sophia sat across from him without hesitation, her school uniform starkly out of place amidst diamonds and silk, but